funds, they would rather you undesignate than put it back in.
Right, and the auditors, that's a suggestion they've made.
That's a suggestion they make to us.
But if I may, I'll clarify one thing, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Young. Also, as my motion stated, the motion was to unreserve the $468,733 from the sewer system fund to go back into the county's general fund.
Yeah, one more clarification, and I'll ask staff to make sure this is correct, but we're not, this money is not in the sewer fund. This has been in the general fund. It's just been restricted within our reserve fund, and this will unrestricted, which is the distinction. So it's not, it's not going from the sewer fund to the general fund. It's already been included in the fund balance totals that have been given to us. It just changes categories from an unrestricted fund in the fund balance to now, a restricted one to unrestricted. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Just want everybody to be clear on that.
It's a simple thing.
An accounting entry.
Auditors could have picked up on it. I'm surprised they picked up on it in 2000, to be honest with you. So it's not it's not any reflection on anybody's service or anybody's it's just not reflecting on anybody.
Not all.
Any other questions or comments?
And again, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to reiterate that it's nothing but an accounting entry.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of, and this is a recommendation coming out of finance.
That is correct.
With the administrator's blessing, recommended by the auditor.
That's all.
It's actually got the county administrators, the county external auditors, and the finance director's recommendation.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please signify by lifting your right hand. Opposed, no, and let the record indicate that it is unanimous. Okay, the next item under the larger categories of ordinances for consideration tonight is a second reading of an ordinance to amend the procurement code, local preference. That's under tab D. In previous meetings, council had discussed trying to do whatever we could as a council to be sure that our local vendors who bid on projects for Kershaw County were certainly given the utmost consideration and as much of a break as we could within reason. And over the last few weeks, we've discussed this, we've talked about it. There's been caps, talked a little bit about the caps on the bids, exactly what would be included in the local preferences and the other preferences. And then I think last time Mr. Geary mentioned something about the MBE, which is minority business enterprise preference being included into it. I believe that we asked Mr. DeBose at the last meeting if he would to include these items for council's consideration for the second reading. Ken, I'd like to ask you if you'd like to address that to the council before we discuss it.
First thing, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the caption of the ordinance as presented should just say amendment of Kershaw County Procurement Code as amended, because the proposed amendment is in two parts. And the first part is the council read the first time. Mr. Geary asked that we include minority business enterprises. Jeannie Hammond, myself, and Mr. Young looked at that, and Mr. Miles had a question about that. So minority business enterprises include Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, American Indians, Eskimos, Aleuts, Native Hawaiians, Asian Pacific Americans, and women. And women. Along with other categories. It does include women, yes. And I have the regulations here, they're 2 pages long if somebody cares to look at them. That's the regulations reference. Then Mr. Young and Jeannie Hammond asked me to include, and this was not part of Mr. Miles' comments or Mr. Geary's comments, but include 2 other amendments, Section 2.32 and Section 2.35. What those 2 do is increase the requirement of county council approval and sealed bids to $25,000. I think presently it is how much? $10,000. The procurement officer, Jeannie Hammond, thinks with the procurement that she's doing now, increasing it to $25,000 makes it more practicable. But that is that increase. Now it's 10,000. When you see 25,000 under 2.32, that's presently 10. If you look down at 2.35 small purchases, that 25 is now 10. So it increases from 10 to 25 the requirement that council approve the bids. That is from Mr. Young's recommendation and Jeannie Hammond's recommendation. That is independent and apart from 2.54, which now includes minority business enterprises. So we've got two things going on. We've got Mr. Gary and Mr. Miles' recommendations, which are in 2.54. You approved A, and now B was there pursuant to Mr. Gary's about minority business enterprises and Mr. Miles' inquiry about women to be included, which they are. And then 2.32 and 2.35 are upon the recommendation of the procurement officer, Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Bud. Let me ask members of council if y'all have any questions in relationship to the report he just made. I think I appreciate him providing that to us with clarity, and I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask. Thank you.
And the caption needs to just say amendment of Kershaw County Procurement Code. That's how it needs to read.
This is simply the amendment of the Kershaw County Procurement Code.
To include 5% local preference, include minority business enterprises secondarily, which includes, and then to also change the thresholds, which dovetail into 2.54. That's something in has recommended that, and it has Mr. Young.
Well, I think in lieu of this, in the spirit that the council's considering this, I think we have to work with staff to work out the practical sides of it, and I think this seems to be heading for a pretty good balance of those kind of things. But I will open that up for discussion at this point in time, if you might like to discuss it or any questions that you might like to ask. Mr. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we have second reading of an ordinance to amend the procurement code of local preference, also which includes the MDE and also the threshold in section 2.54 that Mr. DeBose just spoke about.
All right, Mr. Jones makes his motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Mr. Elliott seconds. Are any questions or comments or further discussion in reference to the second reading? Mr. Smoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too appreciate the work of the staff. That some of my initial questions have been answered regarding time periods for responding if you were a resident vendor. Also relating to definitions regarding what a resident vendor was, I think that needed to be tightened up a little bit too, and I see that it has been. I still have a few reservations, however, related to the amount of the preference. I still think it has the potential to drive away competition and potentially drive up cost. And I think I feel more comfortable with about maybe 3% or something a little bit lower there. And then one other point I need to make, and that is, because I want to make sure my colleagues understand what some of the changes tonight mean. And that is that if you have a low bidder who is from Lee County and there is a minority business enterprise vendor who qualifies under the definitions of minority business enterprise, and they're from Chicago, and they are 5% higher. Well, they're going to have the opportunity to get the job over the vendor from Richland County, Lee County, Fairfield County, Sumter County.